Welcome to Something to Say podcast, a platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds, sharing their passion and their aspirations in business. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I'm pleased to bring you another episode. Thank you for joining us. And today we welcome my friend, Chantelle Fitzgerald, the founder of Mindset Strategies. Mindset Strategies is a certified minority, women, and small business leadership development firm that focuses on mindfulness and emotional intelligence through experiential learning, training, and workshops. Chantel has also launched a, I'm sorry, let me read that again. Chantelle has also launched 5 successful cohorts of her Leadership Institute for Black women, which supports Black women leaders in obtaining high-level leadership positions across the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. Chantelle specializes in helping leaders better understand their own mindset and blind spots in order to lead more effective teams and organizations. She is a certified mindfulness and emotional intelligence trainer and serves as an advisor and a consultant and coach to Fortune 500 companies. Additionally, Chantelle is an adjunct professor for Duane University, teaching teachers, principals, and administrators how to build mindful classrooms through the practice of mindfulness and emotional intelligence. Chantelle holds a master's in nonprofit NGO leadership from the University of Pennsylvania and a BA in French with a secondary certification from Mulhern College.
Muhlenberg.
Muhlenberg,
Yeah,
Quebec. Chantelle holds a master's in nonprofit NGO leadership from the University of Pennsylvania and a BA in French and secondary certification from Muhlenberg College. Chantelle is a former board member of PHL Diversity, yay, and studio in you may
Caminati
Caminati. Okay. Chantelle is a former board member of PHL Diversity and studio in Canadi.
in Caminati. Yeah,
In her, let me read that one more time. Chantelle is a former board member of PHL Diversity Yay and Studio in Kamadi. In her free time, Chantelle loves to travel internationally, enjoying cooking, spending time with her new baby boy, Shane, and her
Mhm.
partner, Ed. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank
So,
you.
welcome, Chantelle. We are thrilled to have you on Something to Say.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
So we're excited to have you join us today. And what I think is really important as we really begin our conversation is how we'll take somewhat of a deep dive. And what I've known on your website is that culture change doesn't really happen overnight. And that's such an important part of business today. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, culture change definitely takes time. And it's something that we have to work at and be intentional at consistently on a regular basis. And also check ourselves. I always believe that leadership is something that we train in every single day and we can get better at every single day. And so culture is very similar. What makes up culture is people. What makes up people is and how they behave is our own mindsets and our intentionality around creating more cultures that are safe, inclusive, diverse, respectable, and respected, where people respect each other, and have civility internally as well. So yeah, definitely takes a team, and commitment and intentionality.
Well, I think for so many leaders today, understanding the true impact of culture and the success of their business is key to how they become very competitive and ultimately successful. But I know that
Mhm.
mindset strategy was really founded in response to your own challenges in the workplace. And I want to take a dive into that, but I think it's more important that we get to know you. And
Yes.
here at Something to Say, we love to learn a lot more about those who we're interviewing first by providing them some get to know you questions where we get a chance to kind of share some of the insights about you to our audience. So if you're up to it, we have a few icebreaker questions and then we'll tell your story. So are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
So the first one is really just centered upon you. What was your favorite childhood memory?
Hmm. Yeah, I've thought about this, and I would say I think one of my favorite childhood memories is usually during the holidays. I think my parents worked really hard to create the holidays, particularly Christmas, a really special time, an exciting time of family and friends. Mostly, I should say, family.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would say some of my exciting memories is, going downstairs and seeing what Santa Claus brought. And they, made such a big deal out of that. And it was so cool. And, there'd be a little note from Santa, and, somebody ate the cookies, and just being like totally thrilled by that, as a child. So I think, my parents did an amazing job in terms of raising us, but also instilling in us a sense of family. And I always just love, being with my family during the holidays. And reconnecting with them, since actually we live very far apart. My
Well,
whole family is in different areas.
I think they probably wrote the book that you'll follow with Shane in terms of the experiences he'll have as he grows
Totally. Yeah, I'm so
up.
excited to do that for him as well. Yeah.
So this is a bit of a shift, but it also is a great insight. So what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from that particular experience?
Yeah, I would say my biggest failure was actually moving from Philadelphia to Boston, actually, a number of years ago. Actually, I think it's been a decade ago now, where I was taking a big risk, where I've been my whole life in the Jersey, Philadelphia area, has had this opportunity to work for an exciting company in Boston, and I moved my whole life from Philadelphia to Boston, thinking this was going to be an amazing opportunity, and only for it to not work out after a year. And I ended up getting laid off. And that was actually the second time in my life of being laid off. And I was absolutely devastated that I had moved my whole life from Philadelphia to Boston only for it to not work out after a year. And I ended up having to move back home to Jersey, and try to figure out my life, because at that point in my life, I had worked in so many different sectors. I was a French teacher, as you mentioned in the bio, and realized I was disciplining kids more than I was actually teaching French. So then I went into pharmaceutical sales, and then worked there for a number of years and ended up getting laid off. Went back to school, got a master's, worked in nonprofit, and then moved to after worked in nonprofit for a couple of years, and then I moved to Boston. And at that time in my life, I had looked back at my life and I thought, wow, um, I've done a lot of things. What am I doing with my life, and where am I going? Work from, education to big time for profit pharma to nonprofit, and then, going back on my, coming back home and trying to figure out my life. So I would say that was my biggest failure in terms of trying to figure out what am I doing with my life. But in the end, it turned out to be one of my biggest successes. But I'll save
Yeah,
that for another
those
time.
really intense experiences like that do leave you with a lesson that is learned that, if anything, provides you the ability to learn more about your inner strength and your
Mm,
ability to persevere and find your way despite the challenges that may be put in front of you. I think it's where you really find out who you are as a person.
mm, mm.
Because if it was easy, anybody could do it, right? So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you build that inner strength. Well, congratulations. And to be honest with you, we are much more excited to have you down here in the Philly, South Jersey area than in Boston. All
Yes.
right, so this is a good one because it's a very popular question. It has certainly risen to the top of responses that individuals like to share when they participate in the icebreaker portion. So, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
Yeah. I would love to meet Harriet Tubman. I think that she was such a force to be reckoned with in her time and what she had to deal with and go through, and also live to be in her elderly years, and just her leadership and her courage and her faith. I feel like she's such an inspiration to our nation, honestly, and as a Black woman, also even more so, and would love to be inspired and motivated and encouraged and by her. So would just love to be in her presence and to learn from her and all that she had to go through and what she did, and the incredible life that she led, and the people that she led to, come out of slavery, which was amazing, during that time in our history. So I think she's an incredible woman and would love to meet her.
Well, and I could certainly see where the type of inspiration and motivation that she brought to her ability to provide passage for so many people would just be such a incredible, valuable, precious award to have and share as you continued to conduct business, because it was amazing the way that she provided individuals light, and that's pretty much what you do. You help to provide individuals light to see the way forward. All right, see, these icebreakers are really good, but we want
Yeah.
to talk a little bit more about you. So where are you from? So your last name is Fitzgerald. Can you give us a little bit more about your family and your origin story?
Yeah, well, that's also an interesting one. Yeah, I'm basically from Jersey. I mostly grew up here in the Jersey area. I mean, I moved around a lot. I was actually born in Germany. Interestingly enough, my dad was in the military, and then we came here to the U.S. When I was two. So I'm not German, although I wish I did have dual citizenship, but the Germans said no. You're born on an American army base. You are not German. um, but yeah, I moved from California to Chicago, to Jersey after that, and then that's where I've been ever since. But in terms of the origins, yes, my last name is Irish, but I guess if you look at ancestry.com, we might have a little bit of Irish in us, but I mostly identify as a Black woman. And yeah, not sure where our last name kind of came from,
Always
actually.
interesting.
Yes, yeah, very much.
So, a little bit more in your story. You've told us about the different things that you've done, but when was the turning point in your career when you said, you know what, I'm going to give all this other stuff up and I'm just going to apply it to become an entrepreneur, a business person? So, when did that hit you?
Yeah, honestly, when I came back home from Boston, I came back to Jersey and was really trying to figure out my life. That was a major turning point because when I looked back at my life and all the different sectors that I had been in, it was like, well, who's going to hire me now? I've worked in so many different sectors, from nonprofit to for profit to education and even higher education, international education. So, I really took a look at my life and tried to think about what is it that I really want. And the common theme that, after reflection, doing a lot of mindfulness, that's actually when I found mindfulness and meditation. And that really helped me come out of my funk that I was in terms of self loathing and not sure what I was doing with my life and in very depressive state. And it dawned on me that everywhere I went, it didn't matter what sector I was in, leadership could always be done differently. People could always learn to be better leaders. There could always be more skills and tools and resources to help sharpen us as a leader. And that's what really led me into the field and work that I do now, is making leaders better, because I think that there is a need out there for great leadership and leaders that have a high degree of emotional intelligence. They're able to recognize their own emotions. They are self-aware, and they can recognize the emotions of other people, and be able to navigate in between that, and have more empathy and compassion, for others, and ultimately be better listeners as well. And how do we listen better to other people and the people we work with? So that
Wow.
was a major turning point.
Well, it's such an important type of work that you're doing. I recently wrote a blog about compassionate leadership, and everything that you've described really aligns perfectly with that, especially as more and more of Gen Z are moving into the workplace, and that compassionate leadership is really what they need in terms of to be successful. But we'll get into the weeds in that in a few minutes. I did want to ask you, though, who has made the most influence on you and your life?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say a combination of folks. Certainly, my parents, and my grandmother. They are, models and of my life. I think both my parents and my grandmothers were amazing leaders. I mean, my dad was uh, in the army, and also a senior leader in HR for not only corporations but also for the military, and made it to one of the highest levels in the military as a full bird colonel in the U.S. Army. And so I look at them like they're pillars of leadership, and integrity, and have empathy and compassion. And I look at my mom, who was a teacher for several decades, and her leadership in educating children. And I look at my grandmother, who was also never had a college degree, never even finished high school, and yet she became the president of her union as a woman, in the 1960s. So she was also an incredible leader as well. So I really look towards, my parents, my grandmothers, that have really led the way, and admired their leadership. And they led with emotional intelligence, with compassion, with empathy, and thoughtfulness as well. So yeah, those have been like the people that have really shaped me, and kind of who I am today and why I do what I do.
Wow. Well, it's always good when it has a personal family connection because it's even that much more authentic and genuine to who you are as a person. All right, so our last get to know you question, and then we'll kind of dive into your field of work. So these are two questions that are kind of really exciting to hear and maybe a little tough to hear. But when was the best year of your life, and when was the worst year of your life?
Mhm. Yeah, I'll start with the worst year. And again, it goes back to that moment of being, moving my whole life from Philadelphia to Boston, and then coming back home. At the time, I was 35, and looking at my life saying, I was single, I didn't have any kids. When you're 35 years old, you at least have a partner and a home, and you kind of have your life together at that point. And the worst thing that you can do, which is everything I did, was compare your life to everyone else. And you're looking at your high school friends, your college friends, everybody's married, everybody has a beautiful home, they have 4 kids, and they're moving on with their life. And here I was at 35, living at home with my parents, no, don't have a job, was single, no kids, and had no direction in where I was going with my life. So I would say that was probably one of the worst years of my life, being, 35 and not having any idea of where I'm going and what I'm doing, or even have, a family of my own. So that was really a hard time for me in my life, and trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. And then fast forward, I would say several years later, and the best year of my life, I would say, is right now, honestly. I did recently have a little guy. His name is Shane, and he's the love of my life. He is 10 months old, and it's just such a joy to be a mom and to be able to guide this little human to being the best version of himself that he can be. And so I just love that, and I'm just so grateful, to have a partner, and he's an amazing partner, and we're both raising Shane. So I would say right now is really the best time of my life, having a great thriving business and having a wonderful family of my own. And it took many years to get here, but I'm so grateful, and had to go through that in order to get to where I am now.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, it's, these points in life where you know people in one way and then you see them in another and you're trying to like, how do I put that together? And I've known you for so many years, and now to know you as a mom, it's like, yes, that is the next thing for you. There's such a natural connection. When I saw you when you were pregnant, I was like, yes, that's so cool. And then
Yes.
when you were showing me your baby pictures, you were just such a natural with that. So, congrats. That's a really good year, and I could see how you're just bubbling with all the joy and excitement from that. So,
Oh,
congrats to you.
thank you so much.
So, I want to move into your field, and I kind of bundled it and kind of called it psychological, but realistically, it's very emotional. It has a lot to do with having a sense of strategy and mindfulness. So, these are somewhat general and broad strokes, but I would love to get your response to some of these questions. So, the first is, in your particular field, what are the most significant trends that you see that are developing right now?
Yeah, well, I work in the realm of leadership development, as well as touch on the bad word now around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I also run a leadership institute for Black women. And I will say that some of the challenging times is the unfortunate misconception and understanding of what DEI is, and also some of the things of like, well, why do you have a leadership institute for Black women? What about all the other different ethnic groups and backgrounds of other women? And there's a lot of data behind Black women in the workplace.
Hmm.
And I didn't make this data. This comes from very, respected entities such as McKinsey, for example, and the Lean In organization that did the state of Black women in America, and how when you look at the data, Black women are truly the worst off in corporate America, and it's so important that we center them and give them the resources and empower them and provide the confidence for them to really blossom into who they are, as opposed to dealing with so much microaggressions and trauma that happens in the workplace on a day to day. So I think it's so important, and not to say that it's not important for other backgrounds, but I just have a very strong connection as a Black woman myself in the workplace. I do know what it's like.
Hmm.
And I think it's very important that we center and encourage and raise Black women up to next level leadership.
It's interesting, and it's not in our scripted question, but I did feel compelled to ask you this. So today is September 10th. It's a date that we'll all probably remember forever and ever and ever, where the presidential debate is tonight. But we're, like a little less than 60 days away from an election. But, that idea of a Black woman as president, and I really don't even want to bundle it under a trend. But in your world, what would that mean? What would that type of representation do in the work that you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would be huge, right? Absolutely. We always talk about the importance of representation and how important that is, and to be able to see yourself in a role that is of the highest level. And when you can see other people achieve that, I think it's really incredible. And I think it's so inspirational. And honestly, I think it's inspirational for all women, for all people, for anyone that feels marginalized, to see someone, get to the highest level of their career that is not in the majority. I think is inspirational to all people. So, not only the fact that, there's a Black woman running, a Black and Asian woman running, to have the highest office in the land. I think, it's also representation of, a minority group getting to the next level and inspiring generations to come that this is absolutely possible. And I will also say that, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, minority groups, or marginalized groups, I should say, have to prepare 10 times harder, have, the background that is, so perfect, work, incredibly hard and long just to prepare and be ready. Whereas maybe other people in more majority groups just have to show up. So it's also thinking about, the level and the heaviness that marginalized identities have to hold, and then also have to overcome, and all of the work that leads to what you see. And the long, I think that that's just so powerful, whereas other people in dominant groups, don't have as much pressure to have to do more things, if you will.
Understood.
That makes sense.
Very good. So you mentioned the word misconception. So what are some of the common misconceptions, or maybe the most, jarring one that you see in the work that you do that you'd really like to clear up?
Yeah. I think one of the major misconceptions is that um, white men are being tossed aside in the work of DEI. And I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions that white men are feeling attacked, like diversity, equity, and inclusion is somehow an attack on white men. And so it's so interesting because I was doing a leadership development training, and one of the topics happened to be around inclusive leadership. And it was a diverse group of people that we were training, and one of the somebody that identified as a white male spoke up and was like, I know you don't want to hear anything from me, but this is my thoughts on things. And so just the fact that, white men are feeling marginalized when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion couldn't be farther from the truth. I would say, in fact, we actually need more white men to be part of the DEI conversation. We need you more than ever, actually, to be a part of the conversation, to be a part of this work, to support others. And it's about respect of all people. It's about recognizing that people's experiences are different from each other's, and how you show up in the workplace and how you are treated in the workplace is different for different types of folks, and different types of identities. And so it's about understanding that. It's about having empathy and compassion for that. And my call to action for white men is to be allies in that, to be supported. We need you more than ever, in this work. And I think that's a major misconception, that white men are being tossed aside in this work, when really we could use them even more so in this work to stand up, and to be an ally and to be sponsors and supporters.
I agree with you 100%. I've actually developed a presentation. It's entitled The White Guy Not in the Room, and
Mm.
what that means in terms of perhaps speaking to just yourself, and how, in order to get a more comprehensive and inclusive point of view, you need to find a way to bring white men to the table. So you're absolutely right. Thanks for for pointing that out. That is a really important misconception to get clarity. The last question I'll ask, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about your organization, is the integration of innovation and the impact that you see from your particular perspective and your point of view of work. Can you talk about that? If there's any particular breakthroughs that either have influenced or you've adapted?
Yeah, I would say something innovative, that we do. And are you saying like something innovative in terms of in general, or the work that we do at Mindset Strategies?
How the idea of innovation and technology has really either impacted or been integrated in your work.
Oh, okay. How is technology and innovation? Yeah, I mean, the use of AI is huge in terms of integrating that into our work, and kind of helping us and supporting us in that way, leveraging AI and those types of things. I would say various different technologies and softwares that are very helpful and useful as a business owner, that helps to integrate all of the different back end pieces of a business, from administrative to marketing, to client acquisition, to CRM systems and things like that. So I would say certainly the use of technology. I mean, you couldn't run a business without it. And also where technology is going, it's more of, I think the challenge is staying on top of what the new technologies are, understanding, all the different AI capabilities, from marketing to writing scripts to answering questions to, talking to clients. It's amazing. And it's just about, kind of keeping up with where is technology now, and how do you integrate that into your work to enhance the mission that you are working on, and to help us be better leaders. And again, as I mentioned, leadership is a daily practice. So we're constantly learning how to sharpen ourselves and leverage technology, and to help us be more efficient in how we lead.
That idea of really the impact of innovation and technology, from operating a business, is truly part of how you become that more competitive business owner. And it really does allow for you to take a look at what your existing business is and find ways to make it better. And there are more and more resources. I think some of that technology maybe frightened business owners in the beginning, but I think they're beginning to see it helps me to do a whole lot more than perhaps what I would do without it. But I did want to
Mhm.
move into some of the specific questions as it relates to your organization. So, what are you most proud of as it relates to mindset strategies?
Yeah, I would say I am most proud of our Leadership Institute for Black women. We started this program 3 years ago, and we are now entering into this September our seventh cohort. And it's just truly amazing. We just had an alumni gathering in August, and talking to a lot of the alumni that have graduated from our program has really been so inspiring and empowering, that the majority of the people that have gone through our program have either gotten to the next level, or they have found new roles that pay them significantly more in a higher level leadership role, or they have decided to become an entrepreneur, but they're doing so much better, in terms of where they were just 3 to a year ago. So that's what we're so proud of, is how we empower and build the confidence in leaders to help them get to the next level. So we're really excited and proud of that.
Wow, congratulations. I know as you look at the success of those various cohorts, they truly become the individuals who, through their own personal experiences, provide that testimonial and motivate and excite others. So I'm sure they'll
Mhm.
come back, tell their stories, and advance your business. So tell us about your Leadership Institute for Black Women and your newly trademarked connection session.
Yeah. So, as mentioned, we have a Leadership Institute for Black women. It's a 6-month leadership training program where everybody in the program gets an executive coach. They get a 360 assessment, leadership development training, and an opportunity to provide a capstone project. And something that is really innovative that we have brought to our program actually since its inception is what's called connection sessions. Whereas I had mentioned before about how important it is for white men to be part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion space and conversation, we do just that. Where in the beginning, we were asking for white men, C suite executives to participate in our connection sessions along with the women in our program. And that was a really, really powerful conversation where we would get into topics around psychological safety in the workplace. What does it mean to be vulnerable in the workplace? And I got to tell you, these C suite executives walk away with learning so much about the experiences of Black women in the workplace. And the women in our program walk away with better relationships with C suite executives, and they get to know them on a human level and get to know them, in terms of just who they are as a human and not a C suite executive. And so that is also really, really powerful. And we've been able to open up our connection sessions to just C suite executives or senior leaders. And it's a really powerful thing where we've had C suite executives participate in literally 6 cohorts. They come back every single cohort because they learn so much and they sharpen their leadership and they actually develop more empathy and compassion, and they think about the policies and procedures in their own organizations that they're leading and how to make them better so it's inclusive of all people. And I believe if you support one marginalized identity, you support the world. You support everyone. So, I think about the disabled community where, you build ramps to help them, get into buildings and elevators and things like that. But that doesn't serve just people, with a disability. It serves mothers and children with strollers. It serves elderly people that need support as well. So when you do something for one marginalized identity, you actually help the greater good and humanity as a whole. And I think we get so hung up on, oh, you're just doing for this one person or this one identity group. But actually, when you do for one, you do for all. And I think that's something we really need to remember as well.
Well, what you've described is really how you underscore the experiential aspect of the work that you do. That ability through the connections for individuals to experience through a variety of different individuals, but in a one-on-one setting to have a greater understanding through the reality of dialogue and interpersonal interaction can make a huge difference. So congrats to you about that. I did also want to just find out a little bit more about some of your new leadership training offering that you have. Can you kind of share some of the insights around that?
Yeah, definitely. So we're actually expanding so not only do we have the Leadership Institute for Black women, but we do leadership development training for all people as well, and do a lot of different workshops for different organizations, particularly around strengths. And we actually are just about to launch our tiered leadership training program for anybody who is feeling stuck in their career, not really sure where they want to go next, or maybe they have an idea of wanting to get to the next level, but really need support, whether that's from a community, whether that is leadership training or having an executive coach, or even if you're having a sticky and tricky situation in the workplace. I mean, we always, might have an issue with our boss or issue with colleagues, and you really don't really have anywhere to turn or who to talk to. So we've created this leadership tiered program where anyone at a really affordable rate can actually get leadership development training once a month or multiple times a month, depending on the package that you choose. And so we're just about to launch our tiered leadership development program for individuals that are hungry for professional development, but their organizations are just not giving them the resources or investing in them. They can invest in themselves at a very low cost to get group coaching, individual coaching, and leadership training online courses as well. So we're so excited to launch this new tiered leadership program for anybody that's interested in wanting to grow and increase their professional development and leadership.
And I think for so many that are trying to find ways to be more skilled at their ability to manage an environment of mixed generations, of individuals in the workplace, and how can they fine tune their skills, and maybe not being committed to a long-term academic curriculum. These type of programs or trainings can be, invaluable. So I'm glad we're able to share some of that insight about your organization. Congrats. One last question before we kind of move to our last and final question from Something to Say. What new partnerships are you creating?
Yeah, so we're so excited that we are now going to be a partner with an organization called Evolution. And they are a kind of an incredible kind of leadership development consulting firm where they have worked with many organizations, from a lot of tech organizations, from Google to Slack to Glassdoor, to all kinds of major tech companies, where they do leadership development, executive coaching. And now we are going to be an official partner with Evolution to actually expand our offerings to a larger group. So we're so excited about that, and really excited to work with other organizations that are looking for leadership development training, as well as executive coaching, and maybe wanting to have a leadership institute internally at their workplace, where we're going to be able to offer those offerings as well. So really excited about that.
Wow, congrats. And I should do a big shout out to our friends over at the Southern New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, because I know we're both members and they're a great
Yes.
organization that really helps to promote the work that we do as entrepreneurs and businesses, and really help to create the environment for us to come together. So,
Yes, yes, yeah. Shout out to the South Jersey Chamber of Commerce, or the Chamber of Commerce of Southern New Jersey is actually the full title there. And yeah, they're an amazing organization for small businesses to really connect and network. And I've been able to, build such a great network with the Chamber of Commerce there as well. So if anybody's in the South Jersey area, definitely an opportunity to connect with the Chamber of Commerce of Southern New Jersey.
well, our last and final question is really always centered upon who we are as a podcast. So we're entitled Something to Say. So we always love to give those who we interview an opportunity to tell us what they would like to say. So what do you have to say?
Yeah, what I haven't I said already? No, but honestly, what we have to say is the importance of leadership development. I think when we look at our world, and we look at the people that are leading us today, do we want those people to be examples? Are they great examples for our children? Are they good examples of leadership? Do they have empathy? Do they have compassion? Do they listen? Do they have integrity? And it's so interesting that whenever we ask in our leadership trainings for my different clients that we work with, we ask them, what makes a good leader? And many times they talk about how their leader listened to them. They talk about how their leader motivated them. They were inspirational. They got along. They had great relationships. They felt connected to their leader. They felt empowered. They felt inspired. They were excited. And how interesting that no one ever says, they were really good with data analytics, or they were just so good with this technical skill. But oftentimes, when we ask people what are good leaders, many of them, 9 out of 10 times, will come up with emotional intelligence core
Mm,
competencies. And
wow.
so, when we think about leadership, let's think about a high degree of emotional intelligence. What does that mean? They are self-aware. They can manage their emotions under stress. They are grounded and can make really good decisions without getting flustered. They are have empathy and compassion, and they listen. So what I would like to say is, let's follow leaders and let's be leaders with a high degree of emotional intelligence.
Chantelle, I knew you had something to say, and I have to thank you for sharing your passion and your insights. Your words are truly informative, and I'm sure you're going to hear from some leaders who want to have a mindset strategies connection to take their team and their business to the next level. So it has been a pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful to share this time with you. Thank you so much.
So, audience, that's a wrap for this episode of Something to Say. Stay tuned for more inspirational conversations with voices of individuals from diverse backgrounds sharing their passions. So, until next time, this has been Greg DeShields.